If you have got your standard set in stone, you're fossilizing, not improving. It's a big danger. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel where we make operational excellence practical. And today let's talk a bit about, well, standards. I love them, but please don't really fix your standards. I see this so often in companies where we make the standard sort of audit proof very strong. There is a sort of golden quality manual that defines everything that there is to do in this company. And while, the Toyota system actually has loads of standards, but they are not completely fixed, right? When they really fix stuff, their performance also went down. So they have that Kaizen concept of making small changes every day. You also want to have that Kaizen concept, and I'm quite sure you talk about it quite a bit, but then you also want to standardize the things you get out of your improvement teams, out of the root cause analysis and the fixes that you apply to any problems you encounter, and then you want to standardize it, make nice work instructions, teach that to your people, and preferably also use all kinds of nice visual management, all kinds of things locked in. And while the idea is really good, right, we do need, without standards you cannot improve. But the thing is, improving is changing your standard. So if you want to speed up improvement in your organization, you need to find that balance. You need to make sure that updating a standard is easy. Controlled, but easy. And that is a tricky balance, I will say, but I've seen a couple too many companies, especially the larger ones, like multi-site companies with a strong global set of departments who really fix standards and also do things like, let's cookie cutter it over all of our sites. There's a couple of things to say for it, but so often this misses the mark because you standardize things that you don't need and you asphyxiate your factories, your production crews. Now, how can we look at this in a good way? Because honestly, I think you feel this same balance problem, right? If we let go of standards, we just do whatever, then you cannot teach new people, then you cannot really build on what you have done before, and then you're not going to be able to sustain your improvements. But if you completely fix it, it also doesn't work. And that all comes down to the concept that is behind any continuous improvement program, any Lean, Six Sigma, TPM, operational excellence type of program, the PDCA loop. And all of these matter, right? This whole loop, this is about standards. Got a video on that specifically with the idea that the standard is sort of your plan and your real operational doing it is that do. Now the things come in. How can you strike that balance? When you do your process control, your check or your control of did we actually do things according to the plan? Never, ever go in blaming people. I often quip, we've got that tool, 5 times why. So many companies, they just, they miss a letter and it becomes 5 times who. That is going to kill your continuous improvement, your building upon the strength of your organization. When you check and somebody's not performing according to the standard, right? Somebody's maybe using different settings or they're using a work method that was not approved. They're taking some shortcuts. Maybe they're ignoring a safety rule. No, important stuff, right? If you're missing quality or safety or machine sort of safety rules where the way that you're not treating the machine is probably going to damage it beyond repair, got such things like steel scrapers on a steel line. It's not a very smart idea. In some industries it's really needed, but in most industries there are better ways. Stuff like that. Now, you already know, I'm not going to tell you, break the safety rules. That's okay. So yeah, do correct it. Do act immediately in the moment. But when you want to have good, efficient use of standards within your organization, when you want this building and learning organization, the act should be on the plan. See where the arrow goes? The act is not on the person. I know that's also a P, but it's not on the person there in the moment. The act is on the standard. So if apparently my colleagues are not working according to standards, they're not setting the line as we decided, what's wrong with that set point, that way of working, the way we laid out our line, the way we train our people. Right? It can definitely be that they should just do the job as you bloody well taught them, because it really is the best way. And this colleague is just really not following proper workflows. Can be. But that is only one of the so many conclusions. There is a good chance that they're doing that not to spite you, not to mess up the whole process. They're doing that because it's the easiest way, or because it's the sort of, in their feeling at least, it's the only way to really keep the process running at its capacity, or they don't have the tools, or so there's all kinds of obstacles that sort of cause them to use the shortcuts, to use the other ways, or indeed they simply do not know. Those are the standards that you want to change. And that is the core concept here. You want your standards to change, because otherwise we're not improving. All improvement is change. Now, this can be that we make the standard easier, and then you might say, well, we didn't change the standard, right? The set point is still 200, or the proper way to stop the line is still to go around and push a normal stop button instead of an emergency stop. But if you put a ladder over the line, or copy the controls to this side of the line as well, and the standard of using the normal control panel instead of the emergency stop to stop your line is still very much in place, but the machine standard has changed, right? You have changed the work environment to make it easier to meet the standard, to make it easier to work at your most optimal in that workplace. Now, that is improvement as well, but that is also a changed standard. So that's one of those inputs that is changing. And this is super important. When you do your checks, check for where can we improve. That means change our standards. Now, what you then get is, but who can change the standards, right? Any ISO certified, and most of the other certification bodies and certification organizations, they will have the same sort of concepts, right? If you go for all kinds of worldwide quality certification, safety certification, management certifications, they will be quite closely linked to the ISO system. Right? ISO just collects a lot of input from many sides. They will demand that your organization has strict management of change. Right? So you need yourself a management of change committee. And the thing here is that this is about changing your standards, right? That's the management of change. Any change you do to your specifications, your machine parameters, your machines themselves, basically anything that goes into your quality or maintenance manual needs to be subject to management of change. Now, the shortcut way of implementing this is that a factory scale, usually, right, will have a management of change committee. And that's usually maintenance manager, quality manager, safety manager, probably somebody from operational excellence or the production manager, something like that, right? So somebody who has a leading role in operations. They meet, I don't know, once a month, something like that. They've all got busy schedules, and how often can you really meet about the big changes? If you have a limited group of managers meeting with a limited frequency, they cannot judge all of your standards, right? That is a humongous job, but also once a month, it's just many changes you just want to have implemented day by day, week maybe at the max. To see, does it work? Yes, no, it's better, let's go. And you also want this updating, this improving of your standards to live at a pretty low level in your organization, because you want the people who do the actual work to do most of the updating of their own workflows. I mean, they know what they need. They know how their process runs and what will make it easier for them. So there is a problem here. See, if a bit of a tied up auditor comes around and they demand to see your management of change procedure and records of you managing your change as an organization, and then they see that small things in the field have been changed, all kinds of settings, without records of the MOC procedure, then they start assigning you, minor, usually not major, but minors for your audit score. They'll deduct points, stuff like that. And your quality department will go completely haywire. No, we now need to control everything. The audit is clearly set and everything needs to be tied down here. So no standard changes except through our committee. And that's where they went wrong. Because your management of change procedure is not the committee. The management of change procedure is that you define who can okay or not changes to those standards, right? Your product technologist or a quality engineer, whoever sort of has the product parameters in your factory, they might very well simply be the owner of machine settings around how the product is made. And they can just make any adjustments. This is very normal in many production companies, that you have a technology or quality or usually not the new product department, but an engineering type of department who have a full mandate to change settings a bit, right? To increase some temperatures, decrease some pressures, up some speeds, adjust water or coagulant flows or whatever is in your industry to get the same product. And here is the thing. So you've sort of, if you did it correctly, shielded that. Said, as long as you do not touch the product specifications, you are allowed to change process parameters to better meet the specifications. So there's a clear box around what they are allowed to do. They work within this framework, but they do have an area of what they can freely change. That's their authority to change. Do the same with other standards. So if you, and here's, let's just put the practical scenario out, right? How would I recommend most factories approach this? That management of change committee is there to safeguard safety, food safety, if that's a thing for you, right? So pharma and food safety, the safety of your consumer, machine safety, so things damaging my machines, and quite serious sort of drops in productivity, stuff like that. But usually you don't want improvements that'll hurt productivity anyway. But if there's a risk for people's safety, consumer safety, or the machine maintainability, the machine safety, let's just call it like that, then it needs to go through this committee, needs to be checked there and planned. Maybe this is also for a certain size of investment, has to go through the committee. Other things where you can just say, okay, who also has the mandate? Production manager by themselves, maybe a project leader for a specific project that has also a scope around it, maybe just team leads in production, like supervisor or shift leader or somebody like that. How low in the organization have you trained your people well enough that you trust them to make these calls, to have them make the call, right? This is going to be better for our workflow and our product. And they do that check. Is it going to have quite a bit of a risk that it might affect people's safety, customer safety, consumer, machine safety? I don't think so. So I'm not going to put it to that committee for an approval. I'm just going to take that responsibility onto myself and have it implemented. Do the change. That's empowering your people. Now, I will, to continue this practical advice, I will say, well, there should also be sort of a threshold in size of changes where it's good to inform. So you don't need to consult them before, but the bit more serious changes, you have to inform the one who is accountable for that parameter or even the MOC committee. Because that way, they can also check that list in their once a month meeting. These changes were done. That's good. Oh, that change. Next time we would like to also see that, because here and here is the risk. Now, is that to blame somebody? No, hopefully not. Remember, this is to have that discussion. This is to say, hey, look, next time, see these risks. This is how you judge the type of change you are doing. And that's why we do want to have it in this format. So if you see something similar pop up, you need to consult us. And the same way, they can also say, well, these other 5 things that you changed on your own mandate, That's good. So you have a very nice positive, negative feedback cycle. And it can even go as far as that they get a case, a change request, and they then say, this can go through or not, but also can say, in fact, there really are no safety risks here for people, machines. So next time you see something similar, this is how and how you can judge it. You do not have to inform us. You don't have to wait for us. Really good empowerment of your people. We always talk about, oh, let's empower the people. Well, this is one of the strongest ways you can do that. To what extent do you trust your colleagues to take the decisions? What are people allowed to change? Will they mess up from time to time? Yes, they will. But so will this committee. Even worse than messing up from time to time is never taking the risk. Right? Not changing is going to kill your company so fast, way faster than little errors will do. If they are correctable errors, if it can be changed back, even if it does a bit more damage, get a bit of risk okayness within your organization. But this is a discussion. Right? You need to know to what extent your management will give this empowerment, this mandate, the responsibility at other places in the organization. But this one, that management of change committee, I have seen so many organizations where it stifled change, where they became a huge bottleneck, and as soon as they become a bottleneck, a motivation drain as well, because people, they put up a nice idea. They would even things like, I'd like to have a couple of pegs and hooks here so that I can put my instruments onto the machine. That's usually one of those things, very close to the line. Let's put a couple of hooks onto the machine. Oh no, you're changing the machine. Okay, so there's definitely parts of the machine where you don't want to do this, but to what extent is it okay, right? So think about these things up front. If they then have to wait until, well, this committee meets the first day of the month, and then what you get is so many of such ideas, they're relatively small, that I kid you not, been in such meetings where somebody like a maintenance manager would say, idiots, they want to weld something onto the machine. Oh, they have no idea. What? And they will call the name as well. It's that operator again, and they're just, this is why our people cannot have nice stuff. Remarks like that. And then, no, scrap the whole idea. If you would give this feedback to the operator, you understand what's happened. That is just going to sap their motivation totally. So the thing is, it's just not communicated back. They never hear from it again. Or maybe they even are sort of motivated enough to put it forth a second time. Again, nothing, or again, that'll hurt your continuous improvement culture way more than basically any bad change can do. So these committees, while needed, it's not one committee. It's not one committee. You need to know 4 different standards. Who can make the changes? You need to make sure you've got some mandates. Now, then we come to auditing, which is process control, basically, right? But there's also those external audits. Oh, those ISO audits? I know. So maybe you are even a certification auditor, and there's a good chance if you've worked or have worked in the quality function, the quality department of a company, those are your best friends the days that they are there. Now, but an external audit is a really bad way to improve the management of your organization. Trust me, those people are not there to improve your company. I know a few who really do it. Most will say they do it, but the effect is just horrible. Now, they are police checking, right? They are not the driving instructor. They are the police who only flag you down when things are going wrong. That is not a healthy way of designing your organization, although you should, of course, take the lessons from it. But what I mean here is you have got your own process audits. So when we do an audit, we're always checking processes. And processes, they can be the production process, but they can also be the training process. They can also be, how do my operators fill in registration software, whatever. Those are all processes. We audit those processes. During these moments, we get back to the original picture, because those are those audits basically. We've got KPI reviews, but we've got process reviews. Those are the moments where you have to go in and think about what part of my standards is just not functioning. It's keeping my people back. So basically, what you audit is the standard quality. Or even you could say the sensibility of your standards, right? The practicality. There is a whole bunch of standards, and I mentioned the one with the emergency stop. You know what makes people use the emergency stop to stop a line? That is just, to get some products out. Because emergency stops are everywhere, right? If I need to stop the line right now, I can open one of the safety doors and the thing will stop. Not in the way that the machine was intended to stop. Not nicely finishing its stroke or its cycle. It'll stop. And it's a very quick and easy way to stop the line. Now, if you have a control panel with a stop button next to that door, next to that safety door, absolutely, operators should just push the button. If they don't do that, honestly, it's laziness. But the thing is, what I very often see is a bit of an older line, especially, that has just one, maybe at the other side as well, control panel, and you need to do it there, or you can just pull a cord, open a door right here, or stick your hand into one of those light screens, and it'll have the same effect for you. So that means that you made the wrong way of doing things way easier than the right way of doing things. Big mistake in the quality of your standards. Do people even know what the standard is? Do I have it clear? Did I train it? Did I have visual cues helping me during production, during the work? If you don't have that, horrible, right? Now, we're not going to go into the whole system, but this means that we're going to go into the 5 questions for Zero Defects. That is a standards auditing system, a standard. It's a standard to build standard. It's a check of the quality of a standard. And the 5 questions are: how well is it defined? Is it a clear standard? Do I really know what the standard is? Easy to learn, stuff like that. Is it easy to set that standard? Right? Can I get the materials within specs easily? Can I set a parameter on a line easily? Have a box folder set up easily? Does it then, number 3, does it then stay stable during operation? So once you've learned stuff, you sort of know, or do you every time have to refer back to a manual for all kinds of details? Do machine settings simply stay there, right? Once you set up your box folder, will it actually keep pushing all the lids of the boxes, all the flaps and the glue strips into the same pattern and really go? Also, the material, the blank cartons for the box, are they all the same? Because if during a pallet of those box blanks the sizes change a bit, then the machine might still be set up properly, but for different dimensions, and suddenly it doesn't work anymore. That is stability. Then number 4 is, can we see when it changes? Can we see when some machine goes out of whack, when a material is not up to spec, when a person is not well trained, right? Uses the wrong method? Think about it. Do you check whether or not your operators and other colleagues actually use work standards, actually work according to standards? So you don't want to check that they have the instruction paper there when they're setting a line. Now, they should be able to do it without, probably, but you do want to have a check. Do they actually use that changeover procedure as we optimized it? Do they actually shut down a line using the control buttons instead of the emergency stops? All kinds of things. Settings, material quality. Can we detect those deviations? And then, of course, if there is a deviation, how easy is it to reset it? It's not exactly the same as the original setting. Can I do something with it during operations? Can I adjust the sizes, the dimensions of my box setter? Can I re-educate people? Can I still use the materials that came in but were sort of out of specs? That is the fifth question. If you want that, there's a whole video on the topic. It's an interesting part. It's also a part of my problem solving course, because you want to create good standards when you make a new one. Now, that whole set, and I realize this has been a long video, I realize, but this is so important. You need to change to improve, right? Improvement is change. So if you want your whole organization to have that active improvement mindset, continuous improvement, Kaizen mindset that is so critical to good operational excellence, you need to make management of change effective but also easy. You need to focus on standards, and in your PDCA thinking, this is all about the standard. Sometimes that's the person's competence, but very often it's one of the other ends, right? And you act on the plan, on the standard, not on the person, usually. Keep those things in mind. Share it with your quality department, with your managers, if you feel that this is one of the key sticking points for your organization, why you can't get to that nice sort of self-driving continuous improvement culture, and that is a big challenge for many organizations. This might just be one of the key stepping stones for you. If it is, or even if it's not, you just like the video, don't forget to hit that like button and share a bit. What would you like to know about these parts? What's holding you back in easily making the standards strong, but also allowing them to be changed? Is there anything you run into that you can't really get over? Share that in the comments and I will help you with that as well. For now, I wish you the best of luck in your continuous improvement journey, which is a standards changing journey. And also, don't forget to enjoy that continuous improvement journey.